if you don't actually have those habitual things that you're doing every day, then 5 years goes by and you're like, damn, where did the time go? And I'm still doing the same thing today that I was 5 years ago. That's tragedy.
Welcome to Behind Their Success. This podcast is for people who are feeling stuck on their entrepreneur journey or in their careers. It's for people who want to scale and grow their businesses, learn about the power of mindset, or they just know there's more out there and they want to start making changes. I'm Peyton Squires, the host of the podcast. I was never cut out to be an employee, and when I was an employee, I was bored out of my mind. So I made a plan. I studied and passed the CPA exam in 8 months while working, all with the end goal in mind of quitting my job and starting my own business. I did that in 2014 and has been an amazing wild ride since. So now let's hear from other entrepreneurs and what mindsets, and probably more important, what actions they have taken that have created and led to their success. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Behind Their Success podcast. I'm Peyton Squires, the host, and today we have on Bryan Clayton. Bryan is a successful entrepreneur and co-founder of GreenPal, which is an online platform that connects homeowners with local lawn care professionals. Born and raised in Nashville, Tennessee, Bryan developed an early interest in entrepreneurship and started his first business at the age of 13, mowing yards. He continued to grow his landscaping business, founding the company Peachtree, which he sold later to a national company after he grew it to over $10 million in annual revenue. Since then, he's founded GreenPal, which has been described as the Uber of lawn care companies, and now serves over 200,000 active users, completing thousands of transactions a day. Bryan, good morning. Welcome on Behind Their Success. Tell us a little bit about your kind of first business and how that all developed.
Yeah, I was the kid that mowed yards in high school, and I kind of never quit. And so a lot of times, you talk to founders and entrepreneurs, they get started mowing grass as one of their first businesses, or maybe a lemonade stand. And you actually can keep mowing grass, apparently, because I never did. I never quit. I just kept mowing lawns, and then after college, I had to make another decision. Okay, well, now I have this business degree. But now I've got, 2 helpers, 2 employees, and I'm making a little bit of money. I don't really like the lawn mowing business. I don't like mowing grass. I'm not passionate about landscaping or anything like that. But maybe this business ownership could be my lane in life. And so I'm just going to make a little 5-year business plan and see how far I can take this landscaping company. And I thought to myself at the time, if I could just have me, a couple more helpers, and then another crew, maybe I could build this into a real business with what little I learned in business school. And got done what I thought would take 5 years, got done in about a year. And then I thought, okay, yeah, no, this could work. And I began to make it a serious business. And over a 15-year period of time, built that into a company with about 150 employees. Eventually, it was doing around $10 million a year in sales, and then it was acquired by a national organization that operates these types of businesses all over the country. And then after that, I took some time off, about a year off, and I thought I was going to, after I sold that company, I thought that I was going to live the life of a capitalist, making investment, being in deals and stuff. I read the book, The Cash Flow Quadrant by Roger Kiyosaki. And in that book, he talks about this mythical figure, the capitalist. And I thought, man, that would be cool. That was fun for about 6 months. And it got existential real quick. And then I thought, well, I need to start another business. And so I had this idea that I could build an app like Uber, but for lawn mowing. And so that's where the idea for GreenPal was born. And now GreenPal is the largest network of lawn care services in the United States, where you can order a lawn mowing service with an app, and around 300,000 people using it every week to get lawn mowing. So 23 years, started with just me and a push mower, built that up and sold it to a company, and then it started an app that makes that business run smoother.
That's cool. That's an impressive story, man. I kind of press into, I like when you were talking about that year you had off. How long did it take you to just, I hear the story of people that have sold companies and
you think that ideal, like, oh, I'm going to go sit on the beach and be happy the rest of my life or whatever, right? And then what,
Yeah.
a couple months later, you're like, oh man, I'm worthless. I have no purpose, or, that kind of stuff, right? Did you have those types of feelings or?
I did, and it's like you can tell somebody that 100 times, a million times, and they'll never believe you until you experience it on your own. It's kind of like you ask anybody what their dreams are, and they say, "I'm going to give you all of that tomorrow," and then you realize 3 months later that okay, now I need the next goal. That's what life's all about. It's about the next level of the game. It's about the next set of challenges. It's about growing through that, and without that, life is not really meaningful. And so that was what was missing, and that was what I didn't really understand. There was no answer to the question, if it's not for me, then what? And for me, my business has always been the answer to that question. If I don't really just get out of bed this morning and bust it, then what happens? And with my first company, it was, well, then that you're not going to be able to make payroll on Monday, and there's 150 people that rely on that, so there was a lot of meaning just in that piece of the business of making it a place that my people could come and grow and earn a living. And then now fast forward today, running this humble tech company, the answer to that question is, if it's not for me, then there's a team of 40 or 50 people that work with me that are building tools that thousands of people use. And so I take that seriously. There's a lot of small businesses that depend on our technology to run well. And without me, then that may not work correctly, and or may not grow and prosper. And so they don't need the tools they need, and they don't have the tools they need. And so it's always been the answer to the question of why is it important to keep pushing forward and growing in life. And
Yeah.
that's a good
Yeah,
thing.
for sure. Yeah. And, I think the typical journey on a lot of those, that entrepreneur journey, right, where it starts out like, you started out a lawn mowing business because you wanted to make money, right? And it was just about, let's hustle, let's make some money. Very similar, when I started my accounting firm, right? But then soon it's like, okay, you have some level of success, you grow a little bit. Maybe you have some financial success, and then you're like, you're right, you kind of lose your purpose a little bit, right? And then, if you have employees, generally the next step on that process is like, well, I'm doing it for my employees, right? Like I'm doing it for them to grow and all that stuff. And it's, that can be, but you're right. You always got to find that next kind of fulfilling purpose, or, it certainly can't be about you for very long, or it's not going to motivate you for very long.
It's very true. I think it's okay to maybe one level 1, 2, or 3 of the game, so to speak, for it to be kind of this, maybe an egotistical thing. Maybe you got a chip on your shoulder. Maybe you want to prove to yourself and to your family and your friends that you can build something successful, or maybe you want to make a bunch of cash. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Like, having that profit motive is fine. In fact, maybe it's helpful to get through the first level or 2 of the game. But then as time goes on, you're gonna have to tap into something else to get through the next levels of the game, because that kind of self-centered mentality won't be enough. You won't It won't be enough for you to evolve as a leader, as a person, as a founder. It won't be enough for you to overcome the challenges that are required at that stage of the game. And for me, I experienced it the same way. I was able to look internally into the company and say, okay, this is important that I go to conferences, that I read books, that I try to become a better leader, that I try to become a better strategic thinker about where we're taking this business, because my people depend on it. I'm not going to be able to grow the business for them to be able to grow their careers. I'm not going to be able to hire their friends and family. I'm not going to be able to give them pay raises. If they put in 3 or 4 years with the business, they're going to want to grow with the business. And if you can't grow the business, you don't have the opportunity for them. And so I took that seriously. I take it seriously now. And I think the reward for that is like, okay, you see your people put a down payment on a bigger house, or buy a new car, or put their kid into a really good school, or pay off student loan debt, medical debt. I've seen all of these things, and you're like, wow, this thing that we're all working hard on created that prosperity for them. And so that's kind of the reward in that stage.
Yeah. That's even, I certainly haven't grown businesses to the size that you have, but even with the small teams I'm a part of in my businesses, maybe 15 people in total. But yes, I find myself focusing on more of like, how do I be a better leader? How do I create more opportunities for everybody around me? And I say this a lot, is like the owner or the leader of the business is the bottleneck for everything, right? Like you're the responsible for all the growth. And it's like, it's only going to grow as in direct proportion to your growth personally.
Most businesses, the owner, the proprietor, the founder is the bottleneck for everything in terms of their evolution. Their growth has stalled. And most times you look, the business stalls with it. And nobody teaches us how to be a good boss. Nobody teaches us how to be a good leader. We're not taught these things in high school or college. There's no business school that any of us go to that teaches us how to run a small business. And so then as an entrepreneur, you're kind of left on your own to find this stuff. And maybe you find it online. Maybe you go to an actual course, but it might take you 5 years of doing it wrong to finally do that. And then you might take the wrong course or follow the wrong stuff for another year or two. It's really, really hard. And I came to this realization running my first business that I was driving into the office one day and I had this knot in my stomach that I didn't want to go there. I didn't want to go to the place that I built. And a lot of the people that worked for me didn't like me. And there's a lot of people that worked for the company that I didn't like them. And it was a bad culture. And I felt like a victim. And I felt like, man, this sucks. Why is this happening to me? And then I realized it's literally like piece by piece, you built this thing. This is a reflection of you. And so a lot of these people that you may not like, that don't like you, that they're reflecting your level of enthusiasm for the mission, for the company, for them. And that was a hard pill to swallow. And that was a moment of personal growth for me that I realized, okay, this is all starting with me. I need to fix myself first. And that's one of the beautiful things about trying to start a business. Even if you have just one employee, you're going to learn that lesson. And you're not going to get that lesson hardly anywhere else in life. It's out there hustling, trying to get your own thing going and trying to get other people to join that cause. And that's one of the best things about starting your own and running your own business that it can do for you as a person is to cause you to learn.
I've said a bunch of times, or I heard it from somewhere or whatever, but entrepreneurship's the best self-development tool there is, right?
The marketplace of customers, of stakeholders, investors, and employees is just unvarnished and doesn't care about your feelings. It doesn't care who you are, doesn't care where your background is. It is a level playing field for unvarnished feedback. And that's great because you won't get that.
For sure. Are you looking for a new tax experience? Looking for an advisor that actually brings you high-level ideas and proactively plans so you aren't overpaying your taxes? Or how about one that even just responds and communicates in a timely fashion? If any of that resonates with you, you probably just have a tax preparer and not a tax planner. And it is through the tax planning process where all the value is found. I'm Peyton Squires. I'm a CPA and owner of WR Tax Planners. We work alongside entrepreneurs and high-income earners, helping them pay the least amount of income taxes, both legally and ethically. We have saved our clients hundreds of thousands of dollars through specific strategies, and we guarantee we can find multiple tax saving strategies that your current tax preparer hasn't told you about. If that interests you, head on over to the contact page at PeytonSquires.com. There you can fill out a contact form and get a call booked to see what it would look like to have WR Tax Planners on your team. So Bryan, you've obviously had some level of success, working through different levels of business. What would you say is your best skill that's kind of you've developed that's led to, a lot of your success?
I think my superpower is just relentless consistency in terms of of taking a lot of stuff that we've got to do and get done and distilling it down to one or two things. And then at the expense of everything else, just getting those one or two things done.
Kind of lynch.
Yeah. Eating the elephant one piece at a time is another way I would describe it. And I was able to do that in my first business. I don't know why I kind of learned that early on that, there's a million things wrong with the business right now, but let's just distill it down to one or two things that are happening the most that have the highest impact. And then let's just focus everything we have. And in the early days, everything you have is just you. It's like, okay, I need to focus all my time on solving this one problem. But then as time goes on, you build a team, you as the founder and as a leader are organizing everybody's efforts around solving this one or two problems at a time. And it's being consistently relentless about that and keeping that the main focus, and then moving on to the next thing, and then rinse and repeat. And that's how I was able to build my first company and then develop systems and processes to make that thing run smoothly. And then now my second business, that's a platform. It's in ways it's harder to build a tech company, but in a lot of ways it's easier. And this world, it's like, okay, we have thousands of transactions that happen every hour, and there's always things going wrong with those outcomes of transactions. And so we're always kind of triaging around what are the 2 or 3 things that are upsetting the most people that we can change and fix and improve, and what's the right call there. And then let's focus everything we have on fixing those things, and then rinse and repeat. And it's like in business, you want to believe this fallacy of, if I can just solve these 2 or 3 problems and make these 1 or 2 hires, I'll be good. I'll be good. I'm done. For maybe a little while, I'm done. And the reality is no, like, just because you solve 5 problems means you get to solve 10 more. And I think embracing that and and understanding that's just part of the game can help make you, good at it. And so I think a lot of times genius and a superpower can really just be consistency. I mean, there are no overnight successes. Something that seemingly came out of nowhere and took a year or 2 to become successful. Really,
there's 10, but there's 10 years there somewhere. Right? That's definitely a trait I see in people on this show constantly. It's right, consistency. You can do about, like, nothing wants to stand in front of a relentless force, right? If you just keep going after something, you keep beating, like you have that axe, you just keep beating on the tree, and you're making this almost like no visible, progress. But surely enough, if you keep the faith, keep beating on that tree and beating on that tree, it will fall, right? And people just quit before they cut down the tree, and that's where most people just stop.
Yeah. You don't really, in the first few years of a business, there's not a whole lot to celebrate. So you gotta really celebrate the small things. And for me, I always celebrated the small milestones like they were big ones. When building GreenPal, the first 5 years were really hard because we were inventing this new product that connected buyers and sellers. And there wasn't an app where you could just push a button and a lawn mowing service would show up. So we had to figure that out. And not only that, but we had 2 sets of customers. We had customers that needed lawn mowing, and then the lawn mowing services fulfilling that need were also our customer. And so we had to solve both their problems at the same time at a local level. And that was really challenging. And so our first goal was like, I just need 100 people to use this in a week. And that took 2 years. But when we got that 100 people, we celebrated it like it was 1 million, because I knew that eventually it will double it to 200. And I know I can get it to 5. I know I can get it to 1,000. And after I get it to 1,000, I know it's over with. I'll get it to 10 eventually. And now it's 300,000. So that's our next goal is 1 million. And so it started with 100. So celebrate these little small milestones like they're really big victories.
That's the problem with compounding, is that we don't understand it well, right? Like, and I don't know, Ed Milet, if you ever listen to him, podcast, but he talks about like hitting a pinata, right? And the first, 20 times or whatever you hit it, there's like no visible change, right? But it's doing all this micro damage that, and eventually, one of those whacks is going to bust it open. But like the compounding effect, right? Like you said, that people don't, and this is huge, compounding in tech companies is getting from 0 to 100 users is like half the battle to getting to, 100,000 or whatever. It's just those first 100 users is so hard to get. The compounding of it, it's so slow, but eventually it's like you said, it hits 300,000 million, and that growth can be much faster.
Absolutely. The first 100, the first 1,000, however you want to measure, maybe the first 1 million in revenue or the first 100,000 in revenue is hard. It's the hardest, I think, because there's no playbook for what it is you're doing. And a lot of the stuff you have to do is not glamorous. It's like, it's hand-to-hand combat. It's passing out flyers. It's schlepping down to a trade show and
talking to 2 people.
It's Yeah, hopefully. It's pounding out, 100 emails a day. It is, and even that, is probably more glamorous than some of the stuff. It's cold calling. It's calling the five people that did try it and figure out, okay, why aren't you using it anymore? Can I come meet with you? It's not glamorous, and it's very much hand-to-hand combat, but that's what getting through that level of the game requires. And I didn't want to do it, but it's kind of what's needed at that level of the game to get to level 2. A lot of people try to skip that, and I don't believe it.
I'm right there with you. So what would you credit as the best decision you've made on your entrepreneur journey?
I think the best decision I made was, this is going to sound trite and cliche, but it was understanding that investing in my shortcomings and fixing those and trying to figure out, like we mentioned earlier, where I was the bottleneck and helping level that up always was a force magnifier. And so a lot of founders and a lot of entrepreneurs will try to outsource that stuff. So it's like, okay, the bottleneck is I am not good at the financial analysis, and I'm not good at the bookkeeping, or I'm not good at the financial forecasting. I'm not good at understanding where we're making and losing money. I hate that. So I'm going to outsource that and just wave a magic wand and fix that by delegating. I'm going to delegate. I heard on an Instagram reel somewhere I should delegate, and I don't understand the first aspect of how any of that works. But I'm just going to delegate, and then it doesn't solve the problem. It's like you should invest in yourself first and spend 6 months and probably learn everything that a really good, not everything, but you can probably learn 70 to 80% of what a really good CPA knows by dedicating 6 months of your life to it, poring over everything you find on YouTube, online classes, blogs, and podcasts, and then become like a poor man's CPA. And then you could do a lot of these things yourself and get them to first base. And now you are in a position where you can work with somebody who is elite. And then that's a force multiplier. If you don't invest in that, you don't know what good is. You don't know what you're looking for. You don't know what you're trying to where you're trying to take a business. And that's just one example. You got to do this everywhere. You got to do it for design, copywriting, leadership, marketing, R&D, legal, HR, and so you got to be 80-20 good at 30 different things. And anywhere you're not investing in yourself, then that's a force magnifier. It's like invest in yourself first, learn the 80-20. Then
and I've heard this said myself as well. It's like you only need to know a few things or be good at a few basic things in each area to be like you said, 80% of the way there, right? Like to be healthy, there's only 3 or 4 things you got to kind of halfway do, eat okay and move a little bit. And you're 80% of the way there. And that's what founders and decision makers that are making decisions on top of businesses that are affecting all these different areas. They don't have to be the absolute expert, but they need to understand the big moving parts, of how they work and how they affect other areas, because you're going to make some terrible decisions if you know nothing about forecasting your revenue of business. You can't, like you said, you can't just 100% outsource that, because you got to have some knowledge to be able to make those decisions without blowing up your company.
Exactly. And I think the takeaway is you can learn pretty much anything. And just because
on the internet,
you don't have the title, you don't need the title. That's the sound bite, is you don't need permission or a title to go be just good enough at software development, at software design, at copywriting, at legal, at the CPA aspect of it, of financial forecasting, all these things. You can become dangerously good at these things if you're willing to invest the time. And so that's always been where I've had my highest ROI was, okay, there was one time in my first business that I was facing a lawsuit. And so I was suing somebody, and then they were countersuing me, and I had never been in a lawsuit. And so I had to read every book I could get my hands on about what does an attorney do? What makes a good attorney from a bad attorney? Okay. All right. Well, how does the law work? And all these things that I never knew. And that put me in a position where I could then hire the best legal team. Had I not done that, I lost that lawsuit. So if you're wondering where your best ROI is, it's usually, working on yourself and getting good at things you're not good at.
That's, I would credit. So I started my business just over a decade ago, and I would say after I had my second child in like 2017 is when I fully jumped into the self-development world and, read every book under the sun and listened to podcasts and all that kind of stuff. And that's 100% what I credit with all my growth and trajectory and success I've had ever since. It's really started to compound, right? I've dived into self-development 7+ years ago or whatever. And you're really starting to see the compound effect of it. And it's
Some kid, who is just starting their first career, their first business, and they're listening to this, if you can start the compounding, the meter running on the compounding thing on a lot of different things, on your financial wealth, your personal wealth, you start the engine running on that, on getting your business, but also on your personal development, reading a book a month, figuring out the block and tackling for whatever it is, wherever you're coming up short, investing in that and becoming the mediocre version of that. And, it could be anything. It could be copywriting. It's like, okay, one thing I learned early on building GreenPal was that words on a screen matter. Words in an email matter. Words in an interface matter. So it's like, man, just like getting those words right can have huge implications. So I took like 3 months and read every book I could read on copywriting and became a decent copywriter. So a lot of times it's block and tackling for whatever stage of the game you're at. You're finding yourself like paranoid and not good about it and good at whatever it is, and you're wanting to delegate and outsource your way through it. Well, take some time and become decent at it, invest in yourself or whatever that is, and then move on to the next.
That's great. Yeah, that's great advice. So, looking back, what would you say, Bryan, is a big mistake you made? What's one of the biggest mistakes you've made on your journey, or something you've learned from getting smacked in the head, building 2 businesses?
So a mistake I made was delegating too soon, but then delegating too late. And so just talked about delegating too soon, where you realize that you have a deficiency somewhere in the business. And personally, as the leader of it, you have a deficiency in some aspect of the business. And so you want to delegate your way through it. You don't know what the hell you're doing. You try to delegate, that doesn't work. And so then maybe you end up doing it yourself. And so you delegated too soon. But then the other mistake is you delegate too late. So then you start doing it yourself and you start doing all the financial forecasting yourself. And the thing is like, you haven't put in the 10,000 hours to become a good CPA. So like you've put in the 100 hours, but you don't want to like spend the money on a good CPA, and you don't want to go through the motions of hiring a good one. And you don't want to, that takes time. That's actually difficult work. And so you make the weirdly enough, it's the lazy decision, just doing it yourself, or working harder.
Yeah.
It's a weird thing. Make a lazy choice.
Yeah. That's a great way to put it. Yeah.
To work more, I'll say. You make the lazy choice to do work. The difficult work is going out, setting up a process to delegate it to somebody who can do it better than you. So delegating too soon and then delegating too late is the other side of that. And that's a mistake I made a lot. It's like I made the lazy decision to just do it myself because that's what the easy thing to do was, and I didn't go out and find somebody who could execute.
You're right. It's the lazy decision. You're not taking the time and effort to invest in the future, right? Of future compounding. You're just like, I'm just going to get this done. You're not you're not investing in your future self, more or less.
Yep. And sometimes there's a time and place for just getting it done, but other times getting it done is the lazy decision. For example, in my first business, I had a business partner for a while. And I remember one time, I'll never forget this. Literally, the place was not in good shape. And many business owners, will have this feeling where everything's going wrong. You have a stack of bills that can't be paid. You're wondering how you're going to make payroll. And there's like the business is just not working. And I remember we were doing this landscaping job, and he decided that the best thing he could do that day was get in the truck and go drive 4 hours away to go pick up a load of materials and drive them back. Like that was his highest and best use of his time. And it's like, man, no, we need to come in and figure out like where we're losing money, and we need to figure out how we're going to solve this problem. And you think it's a badge of honor that you're going to go do this task that we should probably get somebody else to do, so me and you can sit here and work on the business. And so he thought it was hard work, and he was like doing the right thing. And so that's a simple example of the difference between working in the business and working on the business. It's a more difficult type of work to work on the business that we are resistant to. We don't want to do that. And we want to just jump in the truck and drive somewhere for 4 hours and back. And that fake work makes us feel better. And like holding yourself accountable to understand, am I working in the business or am I working on the business? It's something that we should always be looping in our heads every day.
I got one last question for you, Bryan. So looking back on that kid with the push lawnmower, right? If you could give him one piece of advice from your perspective today, what would it be?
So begin with the end in mind. Is a quote from a book that I once read, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Great, small, little like nugget. Like begin with the end in mind. And as simple as that sounds, it's kind of like duh, but most of us aren't doing it. And I still, 23 years later, after starting to mow yards with a push mower and like struggling with that, is what does 5 years from today look like? What is the goal? What are we driving towards? What is the outcome that we're trying to get to? And then let's work backwards from that. And then, what would have to be true today to make that happen? And so working backwards, and really it boils down to making a plan that is executable, that the bite-sized chunks, year by year, month by month, week by week is harder to do than it sounds. And I would beat that into my head 23 years ago, because there was many years where I was just kind of sideways. I didn't know what I was trying to do. I didn't know where I was trying to go. I was just kind of putting in the reps and going through the motions. And that cost me a lot of time. What took me 15 years to build that first business, if I had a real solid plan that I was executing against, I could have done it in 7. That's 7 years of my life that I could have put towards something else. And so begin with the end in mind. Where am I trying to go? What does this business look like in 5 years? And let's write that down. And then let's boil it down into actionable chunks that we can work toward. And that's where compounding gets unlocked.
Fantastic advice, beginning with the end in mind. And, you're saying you lost 7 years or, whatever of your life. I'm same way, man. I bet I at least 5 or 6 years of my business, I feel like I had no idea what I was doing. I mean, yeah, I helped people with taxes and did that stuff, but like I had no plan whatsoever. And today I know exactly what I'm accomplishing, like down to the number of clients, the revenue, the everything. I know exactly, and I have it written down. I read it to myself every single morning. So like you said, being able to execute against something that you can stay focused on, measurable, executable steps, and hold yourself accountable and keep reminding yourself of that. And it's just a matter of time.
Exactly. And if you don't actually have those habitual things that you're doing every day, then 5 years goes by and you're like, damn, where did the time go? And I'm still doing the same thing today that I was 5 years ago. That's tragedy. So let that make you paranoid to stay on track today and to develop those habits to keep the momentum, not just like on activity. Don't confuse activity with progress is how I would describe it, where it's like you're busy, but you're not getting anywhere. And so that's something to be scared about, because it'll go by quick. The days are long and the years are short. 5 years can go up in smoke real quick. Trying to go up.
Sure. Bryan, this has been a great conversation. Appreciate you coming on. What's the best way the listeners can connect with you?
Yeah, anybody that has grass outside that they don't want to mow themselves, go to repow.com. Life's too short to mow your own yard. And then anybody want to hit me up, find me on LinkedIn, Google my name, Bryan Clayton, and then you'll find me on LinkedIn. And then or Instagram is also, I post a lot of content there, Bryan M. Clayton.
Well, thank you guys, listeners. We'll catch you next time. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. If you found it valuable, please rate, review, and share it. That is the best way to help us build this and reach more people, as we're trying to accomplish our goal of help creating more healthy, wealthy, and wise entrepreneurs. You can follow us on social media by searching for me, Peyton Squires, or going to PeytonSquires.com. On the website and social media, we're always sharing tips of personal growth, and there we can actually interact. I'm looking forward to it. Thanks, guys.